Okay, welcome back. So the last couple of things I wanted to say about prop mostly have to do with the concept of moves, according to prop. So prop basically felt that when you put a couple of different functions together, they form like these standard groupings. They have these sort of standard patterns with each other. And so a sequence of functions is known as a move. And there are a lot of common moves, some of which we've talked about already. For instance, ABC is basically the hero recognizing that there's a problem and leaving to do something about it. And we have that little up arrow too for leaving home. The DEF is the donor sequence, the donor move. The hero meets the donor, is tested by the donor, and receives the gift from the donor. We also talked about how, A and K are related, right? So A is the harm or the lack. K is solving that original problem. But then you also go to W where you get a new victory. So the hero has the problem, solves the problem, achieves a different kind of victory. All of those kind of make a move together. And you also have sometimes you can have multiple plots going on. I think we kind of see this in arguably in the story of Faithful John. You have solving a problem, which is that the prince is in love with the princess, but then you have a new problem. So you could, if you wanted to, the new problem being that the princess is going to die or the king's going to die. So you could, if you wanted to, have A1, A2, K1, K2, although it usually all leads to the same happy ending, the wedding. Prop also has a function specifically for when you have more than one hero in the story. And his function for this is parting, which is letter Y, which is kind of cute. It's like it branches off, like branching roads. So the parting, you can again have K1, K2, only now they're two different characters' storylines. So the two heroes part, and one goes off and does this, and the other hero goes off and does this. So Prop gets all the way up to Y. He doesn't actually have a Z, which is kind of funny, but he can have Y be this parting. And so you can put multiple things together. Oh, sorry. I think often these kinds of stories would show evidence of parataxis, that multiple story arcs are put together. But yeah, that's the last vocabulary word, is that a sequence of functions is called a move, and they work together. And there's lots of different things you can do with them and lots of different structures here. So with the last little bit, I wanted to look at some of the stories that we've already talked about last time. So let's switch over back to the Word document here. So we looked at Shrek. What if we were to look at one of the other fairy tales that we were looking at? For instance, the Goose Girl. If I can even spell goose. Okay, so in the Goose Girl, we have an initial situation, which is, the girl is going to get married. The absentation is leaving home. Counteraction, not really clear. Actually, really we should say who the hero is. So I think we should decide the cast of characters first. So Goose Girl is the hero. The villain is, of course, the servant. Then you've got the prince, is basically the princess, functionally here. No idea what Conrad's doing in this story, honestly. He doesn't really, I think if anything, he's just more a part of the problem. Although he could be argued to be, in a weird way, to be the helper, because he ends up causing the king to be curious. But the real helper in the story, I think, is Falada, the horse. And magical animals make great helpers, as we saw with Donkey. And Falada is the one who really clues the king into what's going on, so is able to help out the princess in becoming recognized in a way that she wasn't before. Okay, so we have our cast of characters there. And then the harm or the lack is pretty obvious. It's a harm, which is the villain, you know, changing clothes with her and stealing her identity. And maybe we can see Conrad as part of the harm, that she is degraded by having to hang out with this guy Conrad. She leaves home, and that's part of her absentation as well. And I don't know if she really makes a choice to do something about it. I don't know if she has a clear counteraction. Maybe we could say the counteraction is her whispering her sadness to Falada, or maybe her counteraction is using the wind to mess with Conrad that ends up causing all these problems. But once again, I realize I'm jumping ahead here. We did alpha and beta, but are there any other, and we should put alpha and beta before the harm. Are there any other initial situation preparatory part functions? Well, if we go back and look at that list here, we have, like I actually mentioned before, we have the interdiction, which is don't lose the handkerchief. I could spell that correctly. There we go. Delta, which is, of course, she loses it. Epsilon is trickery. Like we said, the villain tricks somebody. This is the servant tricking the king. And theta, king and the prince fall for it. So all of that leads very nicely to the harm, which is the complete identity theft and the theft of her marriage, basically, that she was going to marry the prince. So it's been stolen from her. Okay, so now we have letter A. Letter B is dispatching. We don't have any dispatching. So C for counteraction might be arguably her making the wind blow Conrad's hat away. We don't really have D, E, F. We don't have a sequence of donors. We do have Falada as a helper. Difficult tasks maybe could be interpreted to be the goose girl, you know, take care of the geese. And she ends up solving this with her weird wind powers, and that kind of get rid of Conrad. So as you can see, the structure doesn't line up completely to everything. But arguably maybe one of the difficult tasks is to tell the king the truth. And here she has help from a helper. Falada helps tell her the truth, and then the king also serves as a helper. Giving, you know, by having her talk to the oven instead. She doesn't do any returning home. There's very definitely a false hero, which isn't on this list here, but is on the list of the handout. So the false hero is that is of course the servant pretending to be a princess, but eventually her claims are going to be exposed. And so the goose girl solves her original problem, which is identity theft, because now the king knows the truth. This is about when you know, inherently the villain's plan is revealed to the king, who can help her. And the villain is punished by punishing herself, which is very delicious. The king asks her what such a person should be, how such a person should be punished, and she comes up with her own punishment, which is dragged naked in the coffin of nails. Very gruesome, but it's fitting because the villain came up with it, and she is diabolically evil. And then, of course, it all ends happily in a wedding to the prince. So I wanted to go through that just to give you a little bit more of an example of how to do all this, how to go about all this, and how to present, you know, how would you go through a fairy tale and come up with a list of these functions. So we're going to keep talking about this over the next week or so, but I think this is going to be our starting point for how to understand these functions. And what I want to do in this discussions today is give you guys a chance to practice using some of these functions on a particular fairy tale of your choice. And, you know, come up with whatever functions you can. And we will take a look at the full list. Let me see here. Actually, I am going to see if I can pull that up here so we can look at props functions here. Let's see. Do I have the file saved anywhere? Just so we can look at it real quick. List of props functions, or do we have to go to the website for that? Okay, we'll have to go for the website for that. But if you guys don't mind waiting a second, this is basically how I'm going to end the video: is show you that there's actually two lists here. One goes into more detail on all of the props functions, and one of them just gives you basically the names of all of them. And you can also find this list in the book, but I'm just going to pull it up real quick so we can take a look at that. Unfortunately, the internet is slow, especially on D2L. Let's see. Thank you for bearing with me. All right, let's switch over to the internet here with our screen share. So eventually it's going to be in this content page for today. I haven't finished making that though, so you'll see that update in the next few minutes here. But I'm just going to pull it up where it is right now, which is hidden in a box so that you can't see. But I'm going to move it to a box where you can see. Of course, the question is, can I see it? Come on. There we go. And there's some fairy tales in here. We might do something with them, but not yet. Okay, so there's two sheets here, and eventually they're going to be in the page for today. In fact, why don't I do that right now? Okay, so I moved them to the page for today. And here they are. So you've got the detailed one and you've got the shortcut one. So the detailed one will explain all the functions and give a little specific explanation of what each one is. So if we load that up, let's take a look at that here. Hate the way D2L puts everything in these scrolled windows that you have to sort through. But yeah, background, and normally I'd be handing this out, but of course we're doing Zoom class. So explanations of the functions, the different characters, and the heroes who are the sort of the functions that are associated with the different characters. We've got them all listed here. And then we just go through the functions in props order. So I'd say this is the best handout to really understand the different functions and what they all do. But again, I'm not going to require that you know all of them, the most important, but if you can draw on this handout when you're analyzing a fairy tale, that'd be a good way to go. I want to be careful about the names here. For instance, there's a name struggle, and that's props letter H. So the hero struggles. He might fight the villain. I think, actually, I disagree with what the handout says here. I think struggle is just reserved for when the hero specifically fights the villain. So if the hero confronts the villain, then that is the struggle. But it doesn't mean any struggle that the hero participates in. And it's closely associated with the letter I, which is the hero defeats the villain. But remember, that's not going to really fully happen until the villain is punished at the very end. So this is not any victory. This is not the final victory over the villain. This is specifically a victory that is temporary. So you have to be careful with some of these. I would say go by the definition more than just the name. More than just the name of the function. And then the other one will just be a real quick cheat sheet if you want to just see the letters and the names next to each other, which is good and handy if you're looking through real quick. This is the shortcut handout, but it can be a little bit misleading. So it's always good to double check what the actual definition of the function is. So let's see. Yeah, here we go. So this is all 31 of props functions. And you can look at them all. So the violation, violation just means violating the commandment, the interdiction as Prop calls it. It doesn't mean any kind of violating anything. This means, the commandment is gamma and disobeying it is delta, and so on and so forth. But yeah, this will be kind of a cheat sheet that should help out a lot in terms of just being able to see what different things in this story can we classify as functions. But the main things I want you to know, just go back to the PowerPoint for those. Those would be the main, most important functions. Okay, I think that's everything I wanted to say. What I'm going to challenge you guys to do in the discussion is to go through and any fairy tale and find several functions that you can talk about and say what letter prop would give them. All right, I will see you guys there, and we'll talk about this more on Tuesday. So I'll officially see you for another Zoom meeting then. Take care, everybody.